Have you ever noticed you can walk into your own house and barely see it? I don't mean literally, but think about it. You walk through your front door, put your keys down, take your shoes off, and literally none of it registers. You've seen it 1,000 times. But then someone visits for the first time in a while and they start pointing things out, like the view from your window, or the pictures on your wall, or the way the light lands in your kitchen. And all of a sudden, you start noticing things through their eyes that you haven't noticed for months. Nothing about the house has changed. The view out the window was the same as it was yesterday. The pictures on the wall are the same as they were last week. The way the light comes into your kitchen is the same as it was last month. But what has changed is that someone's seeing all this for the first time. And I think we do this with more than just our houses. I think we do this in our lives because things that once seemed important slowly start to become ordinary. And once they become ordinary, we stop paying attention to them. Think about something you once desperately wanted. Maybe it's the current job that you're in. Maybe it's the relationship you're in. Maybe it's the house that you're living in. Maybe there was a time where you couldn't wait to have your own car, your own place, or enough money that meant you didn't have to check your bank account every time you bought something. But then eventually you got it, and for a while it felt new, it felt shiny, it felt interesting. But then something happened, and eventually it just felt normal. And I think that's one of the strangest things about being human. I think we think that if something is valuable enough, we will always notice its value. But I've learned that that's not how attention works. And the more reliably something stays in our lives, the less we seem to notice it. Think about your health. You don't get out of bed most mornings thinking, it's amazing that my back doesn't hurt today. You never walk downstairs thinking how amazing it is that your ankle's working so well today. You rarely ever take a breath and think, I'm so glad that my nose isn't blocked today. But then if you suddenly hurt your back or twist your ankle or you get a horrible cold, then it becomes almost impossible to think about anything else. You'd give absolutely anything to feel normal again, which is strange because yesterday you did feel normal, you just didn't notice it. The value didn't appear when you lost it. It was valuable the entire time, but what changed was your attention. Relationships can work very much like this too. A friend texts you every morning, your partner calls you every day to check on you or makes you a cup of tea when you get home, your child runs to you when you walk through the front door when you finish work. And because it happens again and again and again, eventually it just becomes normal and just becomes part of the background. But imagine if one of those things suddenly stopped. You notice it immediately. The silent phone, the empty chair, the house feeling different when you walk in after work. Things can become incredibly loud the moment they're no longer there. And I don't think that makes us bad people. I don't think it makes us ungrateful. But I just think our attention is much more interested in what's changing than what's staying the same. Imagine this. Imagine you walk into a room with a ticking clock. You walk in and you hear it tick, tick, tick. But stay in that room long enough and you'll start to barely notice it. The clock hasn't become quieter, but your mind has simply decided, I already know about that, and then your attention moves on to the next thing. And I think that life is full of ticking clocks. The friend who always checks in, the house that feels warm, the body that works, those ordinary things that quietly hold life together. Just like the ticking clock, those things are all making noise every single day, but we don't hear them anymore because we've gotten used to them. And that's the irony. Some of the most important things in our lives become invisible, not because they stopped mattering, but because they became reliable. The problem is, some of the best parts of life aren't precious because they change, they're precious because they don't. Now, I'm not saying we should walk around and appreciate absolutely everything. That sounds exhausting and probably impossible. You can't stare lovingly at your kettle every morning because you're grateful it works. That's not the point. I think it's something much simpler. It's about recognizing that attention has a blind spot. And sometimes the things hidden within that blind spot are the things that we would miss the most if they disappeared. So every now and again, I've started asking myself a question. What's become so normal in my life that I've stopped seeing it? And it's actually quite strange when you really think about it. Maybe it's someone you speak to every day. Maybe it's your health. Maybe it's feeling safe when you walk through that door when you finish work in the evening. Maybe it's hearing your family laughing in another room. Maybe it's something completely boring that you'd never think to photograph or post online or tell anyone about. Because I sometimes think the moments that we'll miss are the big ones, the birthdays, the holidays, the big events. And obviously, we probably will miss all of those things. But I think that some of the things we'll end up missing the most are those small things that probably don't feel important enough to notice right now. That birthday mug that's sitting on the side, a familiar drive home, a conversation that you've had 100 times, someone shouting at you from another room, those ordinary little details of life that just feel a bit normal. And maybe that's one of life's quietest tricks. The things that support us the most every day don't demand our attention. They don't announce themselves. They don't tell us they're important, but they just stay. Until sometimes they don't, and then suddenly we see them everywhere. Not because they became valuable when they disappeared, but because losing them finally made their value impossible to ignore. So maybe every now and again, it's worth looking at your life the way that that friend looked at your house, as though you've never seen it before. Notice the pictures on the walls, the way the light comes through the window, the people who are sitting beside you. Notice what's working. Notice what's still here. Because the things that you barely notice today are the things that you one day might give anything to experience one more time. They weren't invisible because they don't matter. They became invisible because they never stopped being there.